ESPN HD Production Live, here with Tom Mcnulty, the president of Global Produce Entertainment. What inspired you to get into the film business?
I guess what's inspired me to get into film business was storytelling, first and foremost. I'm from New York, and so I used to go to see a lot of Broadway plays, not Broadway plays as a kid, and I really liked that. And I wanted to be an actor initially, which is why I moved out here from New York, and that's a huge mistake for me because I was not a very good actor. In fact, I was god awful. I really was. I was horrible, and a lot of my friends were delusional, thinking, "No, you're really good," but in reality, I was horrible. And so, but I began producing a lot of plays and producing just short films, and very quickly I realized that just because I'm not in front of the camera doesn't mean you're any less creative. And so the idea of pursuing a career with a creative endeavor behind the scenes as a producer was really interesting to me. And so my day job at the time was working in film marketing, and I was running focus groups for a now defunct company called NRG, and doing recruiting for them. And off of that, I got to see how marketing and how much test screening played a part in putting movies together. And I got to know some marketing people at studios, and one of them became a producer. And so he hired me to be his assistant, and from there I began working on movies, and it was fantastic. So that's the short 30-second version of how I got here today.
Has the business been what you expected it to be?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, in the sense that it's really hard, and it's kind of an up at dawn and in bed by midnight kind of job, and you never really know where your next project's going to come from. You never know what your next movie's going to be. You might think that you know what your next film's going to be, but then the Hollywood gods like playing tricks on you, and suddenly your money falls through, or the actor falls through, or the director walks, or the script comes in, it's not that good, and the studio doesn't want to make the film anymore, or a myriad of things can happen, and your film falls apart. And then sometimes you wake up one morning and you realize you're at a production office in pre-production, and you remember, how the heck did I get here? When 2 weeks ago I was back at home not knowing what my next film was going to be. So that part was really a surprise to me, and also how much or how small the town is in terms of people who do what I do, in terms of agents and writers and managers and other producers and studio executives. It's a really small community in the film community, and everyone does kind of know everybody else eventually, for better or for worse. And so sometimes it's hard not to take your job home with you, and so that's always weird. And you'll always see somebody out, and either at dinner or my sister is a school teacher in Manhattan, and she once said to me she's never met a job where people's social lives and professional lives are so intermingled every single day. And
do you have a spouse in the business?
I do. My wife is also a producer. We've never worked together because we're not crazy. But she was like myself. She's a film producer, and she was a studio executive for a while, and she produced a couple of movies. She did a lot of movies, actually. Most notably, she just did Valentine's Day, and she did New Year's Eve, and she's got a couple of other smaller films coming out and stuff like that. So, yeah, she does it too.
And how is that? Do you find you're competitive with each other?
No, because she's as un-Hollywood as it gets, so she honestly does not give a darn about what I do. She doesn't really talk about work that much. I talk about work too much, so we're really good balance. But no, we're not really competitive. Occasionally, every now and again, there might be a script that goes out in the business, which is a spec script, and we both are submitting it to the various studios and whatnot. But we never really come to blows over anything like that. But we'll help each other out. If I don't know someone, then she does, and vice versa. We'll provide introductions, things like that.
What have been the biggest highlights of your career so far?
This interview is my biggest highlight ever, from this point forward as well. From 30 years ago and from 50 years in the future, this is the apex of my entire life.
You finally made it.
Mm-hmm. It's all downhill from here, pretty much. The biggest highlights, I don't know. I mean, honestly, it's going to sound really weird and like folksy, but like when a script comes in that's really great and you get really excited about it, because it's nothing but potential, and it's the best version of that story, and then that's always a really exciting time. And then, or when you get a green light and the studio's going to make your film, and that's always exciting too, because that means you're actually going to get to go on set and actually make a movie, which is the purpose of our job. And as much as development's important as a producer, your job is to make movies and not just develop scripts, and so that's exciting. And highlights, there's a project called Neighborhood Watch that I'm really excited about that finally came together after a number of years, and that comes out this summer for Fox, and I'm excited about that. What else am I really excited about? I think Date Night was a really fun process, because that was when I was working with Sean Levy of, he came into the office with two words saying Date Night, I want to make a movie called Date Night, and getting to take an idea like that and just really expanding it and hearing a bunch of different takes from different writers and coming up with a great script by a guy named Josh Klausner, and then ultimately saying our ideal cast would be Steve Carell and Tina Fey, and then saying we're not going to get them, but if we could get them, that'd be great, but who are like Steve Carell and Tina Fey that we could get as well, and then we got them, so that was really exciting. But I don't know, I mean, it's always a lot of fun, and there's never any, there's good days and there's bad days, and the big celebrity days of going to parties and such, that's not really so much about that. It really is just like sitting in the office, reading scripts, doing work, taking meetings and working on scripts, and sitting in the editing rooms and getting the cuts right and stuff like that with the director. So I'm not sure if I answered your question or not. But
What advice would you give to upcoming filmmakers?
Stay hungry, don't be entitled. You're going to be answering a lot of phones, you're going to be getting a lot of coffee, you'll be reading a lot of bad scripts, and it's funny, a lot of people come out here, myself included, and I have the idea of, okay, I'm going to redo Hollywood, I'm going to redefine Hollywood, I'm going to shake this town up, and I think that we need that, and I think that this town needs that, but I also think that you got to remember of the shoulders that you're standing on, and that there are people who have been doing this a lot longer than you have, and so sometimes you shouldn't embrace genericism and making generic movies. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think that sometimes you have to focus on getting a movie made, and sometimes there's collaboration that goes on, and sometimes you have to give in on certain things and in order to get your movie made. And it's always the idea of getting a movie, there's always the movie that you think you're making, and then there's the movie that you made, and you have to kind of be proud of both, because it's a very fluid art form. And so I think that for young people, no matter what you want to do, I always say, don't love yourself in the art, love the art in yourself. And so it sounds kind of hokey and all that because it's Hollywood and people think everyone out here is shallow, but everyone here most people I work with are really, really smart. Most people are actually very ethical and honest and hardworking, and so there's not a lot of the kind of the duplicity and schadenfreude that people think permeates this town. A little bit of that, of course, because it wouldn't be fun if there wasn't. But I don't know. I think it's know what you want to do, but then be willing to kind of have a flag in the field and change your plans. That's an American football term. Do you guys know what that means in Canada? You probably do, don't you? Flag in the field.
I don't personally, but
it means be willing to change your plans. So, I always tell young writers, if you should write and you should keep writing, and then but if you need a job, get a job in an agency. Doesn't mean you have to be an agent, but that's always a good way to start, just because you have access to scripts and you have access to people in your own age bracket who are also making no money, and you get to understand what sells in town, where the town is heading creatively in terms of what types of movies people are looking to make in the next 5 or 10 years or so. And it gives you a really good overview in terms of the business. And a lot of writers I've worked with either started at an agency or worked at a studio for a couple of years, and again, it gives you a really strong purview and a foothold into the town. But then again, there are other writers who literally are just like hacking away at Starbucks, and suddenly they have innate talent, and after writing 4 or 5 scripts or directing 3 or 4 short movies, they get a break and they can pop as well. So there's no one way to success. That's the one thing I do know. It's just a matter of working your butt off, being positive, and keeping yourself open to every opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, and best of luck with Neighborhood Watch and your upcoming projects.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN HD Production Live.